Hello,
Wait. I want to know why. When a player goes through one-on-one, why have you never seen a player sneeze when he goes through one-on-one before?
Because they...
All right, that'll be a shit start. Start again.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around fantasy Premier League. My name is Suj.
And my name is James.
It's FPL week, meaning that the deadline being on Friday.
Sorry, what was last week?
Correspondent week, James.
Okay.
But this is the week that there will be points scored before the end of this week. People can actually talk about real FPL rather than draft hypothetical teams and all that kind of stuff. We'll all know how we got it right or wrong, mainly wrong by the end of the week. So, it's FPL week. Happy FPL week to you all. I know everyone's kind of like raring to go now. There's so much talk about pre-season and formations and who will start and who won't start and so on and so on. And we've had we've had the final round of friendlies, really. There might be bits and bobs straggling through this week, but we've had the final round of friendlies and we should be kind of getting close to where we want to be with our teams now, really.
Yes, we really should. Obviously, shout out to all of our correspondents for the brilliant work as part of Correspondent Week. Shout out to our man behind the camera, Nico, as well. Super work getting them videos pumped out as quickly as possible. Well done to you, Suj. You turned up for all of them.
I was there.
He was. Well done to me. I turned up for all of them as well. What we're going to do on this podcast, kind of have a run through of the 20 teams as an overview. Learnings from last week, little bits of information we may have picked up from the friendlies at the weekend. And we're also going to do it in the order that our correspondents have predicted the final Premier League table, which Suj doesn't know how that's going to go.
Nah.
But we've all got a good idea.
Yeah, it's not going to be... I bet I'd get... Of the 20 teams, I reckon I get 15, 16 in the places of where they've put them probably right. And we're going to go reverse order.
Yes.
So we'll go from the bottom of the table up to the top of the table. Talk about them, what's happened over the last weekend, any kind of final thoughts around them, and then we've got some questions on Twitter as well. Before we get into that, as well as Premier League friendlies, there was other football at the weekend as well.
3 lines on a shirt. Weren't they great?
The Lions, they're still Lions because they've got manes on them, haven't they? They should probably create a version of the badge without the mane on the lion for the Lionesses, shouldn't they?
Wow. Is that what you want to talk about?
Politically correct badging of the female shirts. But we won an international trophy.
Yes, congratulations to our ladies. Absolutely brilliant. I was 18 million plus watched it live. Most watched programme on British television so far this year. Mm-hmm. Extraordinary achievement. I think we knew going into the tournament the girls were among the favourites. I certainly thought they had the capability to go and do it, as they have. I think they came through really difficult periods of all of the knockout games. They looked beaten by Spain. At 1-1, you were fearing the worst yesterday. Even the first half hour against Sweden in the semi-final was difficult. But real boost to women's football in this country for now and the future. And to be honest, I think that the abiding thing from everybody who kind of followed their journey during the tournament was, I didn't realise I was going to care about it as much as I ended up caring about it, is what I keep hearing from people. It was great. I had to walk away from the celebrations at the end of it because I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to start crying in front of the wife here. And she's going to go, what are you doing? So absolutely brilliant. If anybody knows how I can contact Kira Walsh so I can get on the podcast, please let me know. That girl in midfield, oh, my God.
Yeah, very good.
She is phenomenal. Sorry to highlight one player, but
wow. They should play through her more. It was like when she got the ball, got her head up, and had space to pick passes. You can see the brain there, and I saw it a few times in the first half. I hadn't watched any of the games previously, and you're like, but why don't they just do it more? Like, why don't you just make that the game plan and the strategy? I didn't feel like she was used enough.
Which male player did a men's team have that's like her?
That's like her. That I don't think we have a quarterback style ball sprayer, really.
We don't have a player like that.
No, I don't think it exists. Like,
I'm not saying Kira Wall should be in the men's team, but I'm saying we could really do with a footballer like her, honestly.
Like, I don't know who's a quarterback style player that just sprays the ball about. She doesn't need to run about too much. Doesn't even need to really stick around the halfway line. Stick in the centre.
She runs the game. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
Everybody contributed throughout that team, from Mary Earps in goal all the way up to Ellen White. Didn't have her best tournament, but when we needed Alessia Russo to come on and do the business, she did throughout the tournament. All of them great. These women have become household names in our game now.
Yeah,
it's great, and there's heroes and inspirations for young girls. The other thing, like when I was speaking to Lauren Harris, one of our patrons, did a pod with me prior to the tournament. She was speaking about how opportunity is beginning to change for young girls, be it through in school, opportunities to go and join football teams and stuff. It's big. It's bigger than the women's team winning the the European tournament. It's about what happens next for kids and stuff. Like anybody who's saying, oh, it's women and all this stuff, you can't be a dad. I don't get it. I don't get how anybody could not be infused by what they've done.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that it did, like you said, 18 million people watching it and plenty more that know what's happened and appreciate it, but maybe didn't watch it as well. So well done to them. And I'm sure they'll be parading around Premier League grounds over the next few weeks and that kind of thing with a trophy as well. So
that's the next bit as well, is in terms of getting more people to go to these games, which is something Lauren and I also spoke about. Difficult, and Ian Wright spoke about it yesterday, about having games at 7 o'clock on a Sunday is not ideal and stuff. But it's kind of catch-22, because do you want it at 4 o'clock on a Sunday and it clashes with the Premier League? Yeah. They need to figure what's going to work best for the Women's Super League.
And I'm sure they will. This table,
I'm not.
Look,
I'm not
the thing is, though, how it's not going to happen overnight.
No, of course not.
By the time the next tournament rolls around, we'll have one step further forward.
You've got to use the momentum of this to help push the game now.
Yeah, I was talking to my wife about it. I was talking to somebody about it. Like, the reality is, we talk about how the Premier League, the Men's Premier League, is developing so quickly because of the financial firepower that we have. The women's game in England also has that advantage of eyeballs and financial clout because of the men's clubs as well. So we will accelerate.
It's only the top clubs.
The discrepancy between our top men's clubs and other European men's top clubs is probably not as big as it is in the women's game. Like, our women's game will get funded better than other countries, and so we will naturally do better. And I do think we will see loads of progression. We'll be in the hunt for the next World Cup. We'll be in the hunt for the next Euros, and we will be at the top of the game. And we'll have more finances than other countries throw at it. So that's why I think we will see it keep moving forward quickly. But it won't happen overnight. But good to see, and well done to all of them. Let's talk about this table, shall we?
Yeah. Right. Let's do this.
20th.
Bournemouth.
Yeah, you didn't even need me to guess, did you, on that one?
No. Any Bournemouth players under consideration?
No.
We're going to kind of avoid things here like 4.0 goalkeepers and stuff like that.
And we're talking very specifically for the start of the season, because I have a very set strategy for my team for the start of the season, in that I'm going with 10 players from City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs, and then a bit of dross, and that's it. And I'm literally sticking to tried and trusted teams that I know are good teams, and all the players from contenders and promoted clubs that might have a talisman like Solanke at Bournemouth, I'm going to wait and see. And if they do prove to be good assets, I'll be able to move to them. But for the start of the season, no, Solanke would be of interest if he does well. Is Nat Phillips, maybe if he moves there at 4.0, might be an option if he does well. But other than that, nothing that Neil Grover said convinced me to go with any
Neil
of them.
was honest about it. I think Solanke's price at 6 million is extremely interesting. They've got a brilliant fixture swing from game week 5, though, which makes it difficult to look at starting with him at the moment. Those first few fixtures, Villa, City, Arsenal, and Liverpool, is dirty, isn't it? Then they have a great swing from game week 5 where we can go and look again, and people might be wildcarding around about this time. So no Bournemouth players under consideration for me from the start. I think the big takeaway from Neil's pod was what he thought City might do to them in game week 2, which will then obviously lead into game week 4. So I spoke on that pod about, yes, Scott Parker's Fulham team was very, very difficult to beat, but until they got players in at the end of the window, they were getting battered at the start of that month. And that might be what happens here with Bournemouth. They had a friendly at the weekend against Real Sociedad. They only named 6 subs.
Wow.
and there's a few names in there you won't have ever heard of. They are really short of bodies. We discussed it. Basically, only got 3 centre-backs at the club at the moment, which it only adds to the appeal of City for game week 2, and obviously before that Villa as well, which we'll speak about.
19th in the table. I think they would have gone with I'm going to go with another from promoted club. I think Fulham.
They've got Forest. What I've done with the correspondence of taking the average rank they've given for all the clubs, I removed the prediction they did for their own club and averaged it out. Forest come out on 19th, just below Fulham. It's worth saying most of these predictions were a week ago. I reckon if we did it again now, that Fulham would possibly be below Forest.
Yeah, not much in it between the two of them. Forest, yeah.
They've got a new midfielder in Orel Mangala, who's going to play in the central midfield area. Wouldn't say necessarily starts in game week 1. But those who've got Jack Cole back in 4.5, he probably does start the season at the moment. Beyond that, very, very difficult to say. And they are trying to buy more players. I think they're now the 5th highest spenders in Europe so far this transfer window. They've got 12 signings in. Admittedly, they did lose a lot of players that they had in on loan and stuff following the playoff win. But for me, they would be the most likely to stay up. In terms of FPL assets, this is Nico Williams or no Nico Williams, isn't it, really?
Yep, Nico Williams is in for me. There was a period that I had Jesse Lingard in my draft, but having seen Arsenal, Martinelli's taken Lingard's place. And we'll talk about Arsenal, but their style of play is clearly pressing and energy from the front, and Martinelli's like as good as it gets with in your face with that. So I think he will definitely be part of Arsenal's plans, which means Jesse Lingard can be a wait and see for me.
Lingard should definitely be a watch list kind of player. The front two basically players split forwards, which really allows the number 10 to push on and kind of advance into as a late runner in between the two forwards, which should really suit Lingard and his potential appeal. Not one to start with for me. Just another note, obviously Sam Sturridge started their last friendly at the weekend. I'm pretty sure he's 5.0 actually, Suj. And he might start the season. But I think Awoniyi will take his place or they'll buy another forward. But Sturridge could well start the season now by looks of it, possibly.
So above them, Fulham.
Yeah, so the guys have gone. And we don't think we should be surprised with this because it's difficult looking at the remaining clubs and thinking, who will go down? We shouldn't be surprised that the way a league table was balanced out is they've got the 3 promoted clubs, they're favourites to go down. The bookies will have it the same way. I would say, as I said, Forest look currently like they're going to be the strongest. Marco Silva also having a big moan at the weekend about the fact that he wanted signings in long ago. I can't believe Fulham have made the same mistakes in terms of they haven't got bodies in the door quickly enough. It's believed they submitted 4 different bids, according to The Athletic, for 4 different centre-backs over the weekend. Taking too long. He said Diop's one of them. We spoke about it last week. It's not done. Malang Sarr at Chelsea's another name has been mentioned, possibly on loan. As it stands, they're going to start the season with Tim Rain.
We played the friendly at the weekend with 3 at the back, but Johnson, Dawson and Zuma. And Diop wasn't one of the 3 at the back in terms of 3 centre-backs, but there's a lot of talk that we will play more of 3 at the back. And then if we've got injuries like a Gerd, we might keep
Bonner's
Diop
ahead of Diop as well.
Exactly.
You can play Cresswell left-sided centre-back. You can play Johnson in there. You can play Soufal right-sided.
Look, Kostic's not coming and Masuaku played. So Creswell, if Masuaku won't play ahead of Creswell at left-back or left wing-back, Creswell will play out there.
He could also play Fornals
Bonner will come in. He could, but...
Point is, Diop, I think, will be allowed to leave.
Yeah, I'm not convinced yet.
Harry Wilson's also picked up an injury, so he's probably, we haven't got the prognosis at this time, he's probably going to be out of game week 1 as well, which means they're probably going to start, I think, with Cabano and Decordova-Reid in the wide positions, probably in a 4-1-4-1 with Andreas Pereira 4.5 and Harrison Reed 4.5, slightly ahead of Paulinho. Reed is being considered by a few as another 4.5 to go on top of Andreas Pereira. I'd be a little bit cautious of that because Fulham are going to buy players. That I am certain of. It's the annoyance that they've taken so long to do it. I think it's clearer with Fulham than Bournemouth, and Bournemouth have confirmed the sign of Marcus Tavernier this morning, by the way. It's clearer for me that Fulham are definitely going to do some business, even if it happens to be loans again. So I wouldn't say with Reed, he's one you want your gunner guaranteed 2-pointer. I wouldn't say it is at the start, but I'm not sure it is in 3 weeks' time, for example, if you're thinking a bit longer. No Fulham considerations for me.
Above them, in 17th, I think they would have gone with Everton.
Yep. Sticky. Toffees. They're going to have a sticky season, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I'm on Saturday. I'm going down to Bath. I went to uni in Bath, meeting up with my uni mates. My mate there that's a toffee. So we've got a chat group, and I was like, what we did? Well, Saturday we're going out on the booze in the daytime.
Back for West Ham on Sunday.
Yeah. Sunday morning I'll come back. We're 4:30. I've got plenty of time.
Dangerous.
So I messaged him and I said, "Where are we watching the 5:30 Everton Chelsea?" And he goes, "No, we're not ruining the weekend with that."
Oh wow.
Yeah, I don't think they're going into.
They've beaten Chelsea the last 4 times they played them at home.
Listen, in my draft, I am playing currently Nathan Patterson over Nico Williams as my 4 million defender that I'm playing. I'm actually going to start him, and I've taken the view that the home fixture against Chelsea versus the away fixture at Newcastle, I don't think either will keep a clean sheet. But if anything, the home advantage for Everton, and the reports from the weekend were that he was good for Nathan Patterson. He played well as an advanced left wing back. So I'm playing him.
Didn't utilise him enough was a message from Sean Norton, that they were focusing attacks too much more to the left-hand side. And that didn't change until Dwight McNeil came on late in the game in their friendly against Dynamo Kiev on Friday night. McNeil scored twice, actually. And it would be Patterson or no one for me. And I think what we discussed on that pod with Sean was exactly where you're at, is that if you were going to start, ideally, with a back three, or you were looking to rotate it, i.e. have this 10 plus 5, i.e. 5 shit players, and we're not saying Patterson's a shit player, but you know what I mean, from an FPL perspective.
Let's call him budget.
Then you take your pick between Patterson, Nico Williams and Pereira, who you're going to start. And I don't hate that as a setup, and that looks like that's probably where you're going to land at the moment. It is
where I'm going. And as it stands, I think I'm going to play Patterson this weekend.
When we do final drafts on Friday, I'm intrigued to see if you're still there.
I haven't moved for days, to be honest with you.
That's because you've probably not even looked at it. You probably will over the next couple of days.
I think you get to a point where you're thinking, you're like, I'm comfy now. Like I don't see where I would want to go, especially from a team structure point of view. The actual dilemma is not around Patterson and Williams or 4 million defenders. It's more like we're Salahless, you and me both at the moment. That's the fucking burning issue in the back of my mind is, can I go Salahless? And I've got a way of getting to Salah. So yeah, we'll talk about them when we get to them. But Everton for me, Patterson's fine. 4 million, job done. There are, Anthony Gordon, if you wanted to pay 5.5, but
no, it's fine. I'm just telling you, not under consideration for me.
Yeah, me neither. Wait and see with Everton.
Yeah.
Above them, I think Brentford.
No.
Really? Leeds then?
No. Leeds.
Yeah, Leeds.
Leeds 16th. Who, with the latest rage on Twitter last night, 6-2 winners against Calgary, a hat-trick for Rodrigo, and a hat-trick of assists for Brandon Aronson, who everybody now wants to put in their team, 5.5 midfielder. We spoke about him a lot with Andy Martin last week. 2 weeks ago, he came on Champions Week. I said, which Leeds player are you most looking forward to talking about? He said, Aronson. We spoke to him about it last week. He said, I'm not so sure now. Last night, he messaged me and said, oh, yeah, my timeline's full of Aronson again now. And I bet Andy probably does start with him. It's absolutely fine. All I'd advise people to do is, are you going to pick this player based on what you've seen in 2 minutes highlights of the game last night? Where, yes, a few of his assists do look quite impressive, but just do the proper research if you're sticking him in. I don't mind it. I think he's one of the best 5.5s in the game.
5.5, is he? Yeah.
Yeah. They've got great fixtures, haven't they?
Yeah.
Meslier's not out the running for me. Probably the keynote one for people would be obviously Bamford scored last night. You can only assume now he will start the season. So that's a no for Gelhardt. Sam Greenwood potentially will get some minutes. He's a very highly owned 4.5 forward at the moment. Yes, Aronson looks like the one to potentially watch early on. Have a look. It won't be a consideration to start with for me. I don't know enough about the player.
So above Leeds, I'm going to say Brentford.
Southampton.
Wow. I think Southampton are going to have a difficult season. I don't mind. I appreciate that as a prediction. I don't think there's going to be much between these guys, and their transfer business hasn't been exciting, I would say. I think they'll struggle for goals, Southampton.
They're going to play three at the back almost definitely, which will be new signing Bella Kochop, Bednarek and Salisu. Cole Walker-Peters will play right wing back. Romain Peral was back at the weekend. Probably will start against Tottenham. It could still be Gineppo for that first game. And then there's two slight variations of what they could do offensively, where they could go with a 10 and two forwards, or they'll go with two 10s and one forward. The midfield two will almost definitely be Ward-Prowse and Lavia. Lavia's a potential in my thoughts now as a second 4.5. Like, I actually think that's a safer bet now than, say, Harrison Reed for comparison. Yes, it's just 2 points. I know that. But he's going to lock down the first team spot for Southampton. He's playing all the friendlies, really impressing. He'll play with Ward-Prowse. Ahead of that, Armstrong and Aribo. This is Stuart Armstrong. Both quite interesting. We spoke about them a lot with Matt last week. Those two, I think, are going to start with Adams. Exactly how that three line up is a little unpredictable. I would have thought if it's Adams, it's probably going to be two 10s rather than two 9s, if you will. But yeah, both Aribo and Stuart Armstrong have been tried in centre-forward positions during pre-season and both done quite well and impressed playing that position. But I think because it's Tottenham Saturday, it's likely to be they'll play a little bit more withdrawn. But Stuart Armstrong and Joe Aribo are definitely two players to watch. I think Aribo's a harder call to start with than, say, Aronson because of the opening day fixture. I think people then will lean into Aronson if they want to go that way. Saints players, no consideration. I'll obviously get to see him up close personally at the weekend. The most likely for me would be Lavia. If I decide I'm going to go 5-3-2, he might be my second 4.5 rather than Josh Da Silva of Brentford.
You don't think Da Silva's going to play?
Tom Med thinks that Jensen will start. Yeah. And then there's an opportunity for Jensen, obviously, to claim the shirt. What he's saying is that subject to fixture might be that they alternate, but it's not just those two players. You've got the likes of Shandon Baptiste as well. They might even add in that area. So Da Silva, if he was going to play, hugely interesting at 4.5. But it doesn't look like at the moment that he'll start. And I don't need that to become a problem. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that's one, the more I've thought about it, where you could make a case to say, if he does really well, I don't want to force myself into the transfer to have to get him. But again, you spin the narrative either way. You can spin that and say, I don't want to have to be in the position where I've got other fires and I don't know if this guy's even going to get on the pitch and I need to get rid of him. So it's probably going to be a no for me. I think I'm probably not going to start with two 4.5 midfielders. If I was, I'd arguably still lean on the side of maybe keeping him. But right now, it doesn't look like he's going to start. And you're kind of booking yourself into a problem.
Yeah, I had a period where I was two 4.5 midfielders and a 4.240 defenders, but I've moved away from that now. Just one 4.5 million midfielder, and that's obviously Pereira.
Yeah.
Above them,
just on Brentford, just finally.
Are they next on the list?
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
because I was going to go maybe. I keep guessing Brentford, and it's not them. I was going to say Wolves, but I think Wolves will be above Brentford.
So Brentford 14th, which will be absolutely fine for them for a second season. One of our correspondents think they'll go down, which is quite impressive considering how accustomed we've come to second season syndrome. That said, I think Fulham and Bournemouth's lack of transfer business is also affecting some of these predictions as well at the moment. And Mbumo, Tom Med's going to go with him. He's been their form player in pre-season, 6 million. He thinks the pressure's off him a little bit playing to the right-hand side of a front three. We do think Vissel will start over new signing Keane Lewis Potter, but there'll be a little bit of a battle going on there. Tom's saying he wants to start with Mbumo, which is interesting that he doesn't want to force in the extra for Tony. Remember, they have a great swing. The first two are difficult, but they've got great longer-term fixtures. Raya is definitely still under consideration for me. Of the defenders, Tom wants to go with Rico Henry. which he'd said last week. Janssen will start with Ben Mee at the moment because Pinnock and Aguirre are injured. But once they're fit, Janssen's likely to be fourth choice centre back, and I've seen him in a few teams. I'd be avoiding that personally. I'd be looking to change that to Henry if you want a Brentford defender.
Yep. Wolves then in 13th, is it?
It is. Yep. Pedro Neto train is hot, cold. It feels like it's cold today after performance of Aronson last night. Pedro Neto, as we discussed last week, is a great pick at his price. He would be my favoured 5.5 personally. It's just a case of, does it fit into your structure? Essentially, that's what we discussed with Bradley. Does he fit in? If he fits in, for me, pick him. If he doesn't, don't. But I think it works where you can't get up to 6. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like the 11th choice.
Yeah.
What have I got left? Neto. Because he's a great pick at 5.5, but if you can get up to 6, get a 6.
So many better options, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I wouldn't say so many better.
Like Martinelli
but
stands out.
If it was me, yeah, that's where I'd be going. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Neto, great pick. There might be an injury issue for Max Kilman. We don't know. There was a potential problem at the weekend, which ironically could mean obviously Connor Cody getting back in the team. Bradley thinks that there's a good chance he won't start game week 1 anyway. They played 2 friendlies at the weekend, drew 1-1 with Sporting Lisbon and Firenze, as Nico's told me. Is that correct, Nico? Firenze?
Firenze.
Can you do it, Suj?
Firenze.
Not friends, Firenze.
Firenze.
That's the ones. Jimenez obviously is going to miss the start of the season. It's going to be weeks rather than months. Bradley thinks Hwang will probably play through the middle. I think that's probably right. Probably looking at Neto, Podence, and Gibbs-White as the 3 behind that. I think we are expecting back 4 from Wolves. We are expecting them to be more open. That doesn't mean they're necessarily going to concede more goals. Doesn't necessarily going to mean they're going to score more goals. But it should be more interesting to watch this season. Sarr is not out of my thinking, but very, very unlikely, I would say.
12th, are we up to?
Yes, 12th
Eagles.
is Eagles Palace, which is interesting because it's kind of the bottom line of what we said and suggested with our thinking.
The ceiling is so high based on X whatever.
Expected goals against last year, 4th. Expected points last season should have finished 6th. Those are under
12th is very low compared to that,
statistics. I went through this on the Palace podcast we released yesterday with Mig, and yet here we are. Same. We all think the same. I just can't quite see Palace being top half. Yet the data suggests, and again, you have to be careful with last season's data, but what we saw last season suggests that Palace probably should finish top half. Obviously, Gallagher's a big loss. Eze did play centrally, by the way, Suj, at the weekend. That's where I think his long-term future lies.
What price are you?
I think it's 5, I think, Eze.
5.5.
Yeah. I don't see him as a
option at the start.
Elise is going to miss the start almost definitely.
Their fixtures are crap anyway.
Yeah, I'd be more interested in coming with that. I won't be starting with a Palace player. That's a near certainty. We think Gator will start in goal. The first 9 fixtures they have are pretty rough, but then we also looked at their first 10 at the start of last year, which was pretty rough. They won 2, drew 6 and lost 2, which adds weight to the fact that they are a difficult football team to beat. And the 4.5 defenders should be seriously watched, but no, I won't be starting with one. Wilf's had a very good pre-season. He's in form. And if anybody wants to punt him, I don't mind because he's actually in a weird way, again, we discussed, more likely to be consistent in some of these tougher games than the ones where you actually expect him to go off. But I won't be starting with Zaha. I won't be starting with a Palace player. Plange is not going to start, and I don't think he's going to get the minutes. You've got Edouard, Mateta, Benteke. Zaha can play through the middle. Jordan Ayew can play through the middle. Super talent, but I don't think he's going to get the minutes.
The next 2, 11th and 10th, are Villa and Brighton, but I don't know in which order. I want to say Villa 11th, Brighton 10th.
You are correct, Suj. Another goal for Leon Bailey at the weekend for Villa.
Bailey or Almiron, James? That's one for the Twitter. Go and follow James on Twitter.
This guy asked me 4 times via 4 tweets Bailey or Almiron, and I didn't answer him once. I just blocked him. Just literally can't be bothered. The answer to me, by the way, would be Bailey.
Yeah.
For me, fairly unanimously. Bailey is going to be very close to whether he's in or not for me. Very, very close. Lee Jackson has put him, he's bottled it. 60% he starts is what he messaged me yesterday, which is probably not enough for most people. I must say, my own opinion is I would have more confidence than Lee at the moment. I'd put that up probably nearer 75, 80% actually. Considering his positioning in a lot of these friendlies and the fact that he's doing very well, and obviously importantly the fact that he's played a heavy role in the final friendly. And I think the fact that it's Bournemouth Everton first two as well is good. I'm very aware if I go with Bailey that I may need to get rid of him quite quickly. Aware of that. But Bournemouth Everton first two is potentially two of the weakest teams in this league. I quite like it as a punt to start with. Mm-hmm. And I think he'll probably go in for me.
There are obviously defensive assets that you can still go with, like Cash or Luca Dean if you fancy a bit of wing-back action.
I know Lee prefers Dean over Cash. I would prefer Cash, personally. It's take your pick. I just see a little bit more goal-scoring threat in Cash, personally, from what I saw at the back end of last season. I do think there's scope that during the season that they may move to wing-backs, but not at the moment. I guess the one real change from what we discussed with Lee was after that podcast, Steven Gerrard announced that John McGinn's going to be captain.
To Mings, maybe not.
Well, they started with Konsa and Diego Carlos at the weekend, so it looks like Tyrone Mings is no longer first choice. So if you wanted to go 4.5 Villa, it's now Konsa rather than Mings, but I'd suggest you probably avoid that and either pay the extra 0.5 or not bother at this stage. The front three at the weekend was Coutinho, Bailey and Watkins. I think that's probably what will start the season.
A few were thinking of punting Watkins over Jesus, for example, just for the first twos, because Arsenal start hard. I think people saw the first 25 minutes against Sevilla and were like, do I want to do that?
I think the problem with that is, the more I've thought about it, is I think that's one absolutely fine for those who really are planning to wildcard in game week 3. I think that's one where even if you leave the 0.5 in the bank, which is recommended but difficult, even if you do that, by the time it comes around to wanting to make the transfer, the difference could be more than 0.5 if Jesus outperforms Watkins anyway, right?
He's fucking gone up in ownership.
Yeah, I know. Jesus' ownership is staggering.
69.9.
Well,
don't laugh at the back.
By the time this goes out, it's going to be 70.
How the fuck can you get a player at 70% ownership in the game? That's unbelievable.
Well, it's because it's a ridiculous price, mate. It should not be that cheap. That's
unbelievable.
Why.
I don't think anyone saw Arsenal scoring as many goals in pre-season, but you're right. I mean, even if he was 500,000 or $1 million more, he should be at 9 million. That's minimum, really.
That's the minimum price it should be. I'll keep going back to what I said. We sat here, we did the pod, we didn't know his price, and I said if he comes in at 8.5, it could blow the game up. And he came in at 8.
When he got to 62, 63%, I thought that's enough, mate. But
he'll start at over 70%. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes off at 75.
That's monster. I mean, I think at that point you got to go with it, surely.
The thing is as well, the majority of content creators, not all of them, but the majority are going with him as well, right? So you're getting the message going to be pushed out for people who are looking for it this week. That's not Villa anyway. We'll come back on to
last one on Villa, Cameron Archer, but still the best 4.5.
Yeah, he's probably going to...
He's my 4.5 at the moment.
Yeah, he probably is going to go in. But again, if that is the front three, Coutinho, Bailey, Watkins, and if he wants to change it, he's bringing Danny Ings on, isn't he? Or he's bringing Buendia on. I don't really see him getting the minutes either, to be honest. So I might even stick with Lyle Taylor. Lyle Taylor would be fourth choice at Forest, but because they will play with a front two, he might get the 1 point or so. Reality is, in terms of your 4.5 forward, in nearly all cases, it's going to be your third sub. You ain't going to need it this season. Very rarely. Because of the 5 subs and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. You know, even if your player misses out and he's a sub, there's a fair chance he's coming on and getting you that 1 pointer. So, yeah, Cameron Archer's a super talent. He may get some minutes. But if it's that system particularly, I wouldn't be expectant of it, put it that way. But yeah, he's the 4.5 I've got at the moment. Defensively won't look. They've got a good opening. I think Bailey, I'm probably going to punt on Suj. You?
Nah.
Okay.
Archer and no one else from Villa for me.
Seagulls.
So, I am buying Leandro Trossard.
You're
but
not.
In Game Week 3 I am. Because West Ham are playing him in Game Week 3. And when I own Leandro Trossard, he does fuck all. So I'm going to jinx the bastard. But I'm going to do it in Game Week 3. No, I'm not going to do it in Game Week 3. Well, yeah, I'm not going to do it in Game Week 3. But he scored a hat-trick at the weekend. That's not...
From left wing back, which we discussed. This is not... You have to be careful here. Trossard at left wing back, I promise you, is not like any other wing back in this league. He will transition from left wing back to left forward, both in and without the ball. It means when they break on quickly, he can be
body up top.
He can be. He's really interesting. Watch it Sunday. That's the game to watch this weekend from a neutral perspective. And learnings is Manchester United against Brighton on Sunday. I won't be starting with any Brighton players unless I decide to go to Sanchez. But I think I've decided if I want to go with a longer term 4.5. And that's thinking of not wildcarding early would be under that strategy. I think I'm probably going to go Raya over Sanchez. That said, I don't think I'm going to go with a 4.5 million keeper. Otherwise, not under consideration. There's several there. I think Dunk is obviously really worth keeping an eye on. 4.5. It's not going to work for me. Sam wasn't big on Caicedo, but I think that's worth watching at 5 million. Welbeck would be a mad punt at the start of the season, but while he stays fit, he'll get returns. At 6.5, I can't see me starting with Brighton though. Cucurella.
No. He's handed in his transfer request now, isn't he? So
if he's in your draft, take him out. He's the thing really to say now.
You're going to be able to go back to it. Even if he makes the transfer, he's not going to start the season. Brighton, I don't think while he's got the transfer request in are likely to want to play him, are they?
So there was a little bit of thought amongst the Brighton community that he may have been left out at the weekend because he put the transfer request in. And they were said the friendly the next day, so they reported slight niggle. Sam said to me that he thinks Cucurella will play at Old Trafford at the weekend, but there has to be a little bit of doubt about that. Since the transfer request went in, Brighton and City have hit an impasse and talks are dead and over. Now, last year this happened with Tottenham and Kane, not that Tottenham were ever particularly entertaining talks, but everybody assumed that City would come back to the table. It didn't really materialise or happen. Certainly once it looked like Ronaldo was going to go to City, then Kane famously tweeted, didn't he? He said he was staying, and then from that point, it was gone. It was off. It had to be. I don't think we're going to get Cucurella coming out and tweeting or anything. But I know that if Man City don't come up with the valuation that Brighton want, which is 50-odd million, then this deal will not happen. Brighton and Hove Albion will not be bent over for this. They have a principle and a philosophy. They will not stand in the player's way if they're not saying like he's no sell. Like if City come back tomorrow with the money that Brighton want, Cucurella will go.
They've given a price, 50 million. Pay it or don't. Simple.
City have just sold Zinchenko for what, 30 million or so?
32, something like that.
Well, Brighton are going to look at it and go, well, I presume you value Cucurella at more. Show us the money, and that's fine. City reportedly are now looking at targets from elsewhere. So if you have a decent fullback at your club, particularly on the left-hand side, be a little bit cautious because Manchester City might come knocking for your player. I don't think Cucurella will go to City. I think he'll stay at Brighton for another year.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't have an opinion either way, to be honest with you. But what I do know is, pay the 50, you get him. Pay don't. But I don't think City have got a financial issue like that. It's not that they can't afford him. So they may just wait a couple more days. If nothing else in the market seems like it's going to happen, they may just say, sod it, we'll pay the 50 and let's get it done. But I don't have an opinion either way at the moment. Like you, no one from Brighton for me. Are we into the top half of the table, James?
Well, Brighton, the top half, 10th, right?
Yeah, sorry, single digits.
They will give Manchester United a proper game on Sunday, by the way. A proper game.
9th, Leicester.
No.
West Ham.
No.
Newcastle.
Yes.
Wow. So 7th, 8th, 9th, I had down as Newcastle, West Ham, Leicester from the Correspondents.
So I'll be honest, the three clubs are very close. And actually, Leicester and West Ham work exactly the same average. So you could argue both joint 7th.
Okay. Newcastle just below Fair play.
Newcastle blown ninth.
Probably a little bit of experience in and around that, maybe.
You getting with Miguel Almageddon?
No. Nah.
Do you know what? There's a punt there. It's the same as Leon Bailey, but a little bit different. I feel like with Bailey, it's 2 weeks. With Almageddon, if it blanks week 1 or he's out the team week 1, that's
a problem.
It's instant regret. I would not pick Almiron over Bailey personally. We know Newcastle were trying to buy a right-sided forward. We know a bid went in for James Maddison of £40 million. Brendan Rodgers said that would buy 3/4 of James Maddison's left leg, which I presume means Leicester want around about 150 million, which...
55, 60, you'd think they'd take for Maddison?
I think if Newcastle get up towards 60, I would not be surprised if that deal happens. Would you think Newcastle are going to come straight in with an over-the-top bid in the first place? No, they're trying to be sensible. So everything we discussed with Si and Aaron last week, and then when I heard that Saturday, he went, oh my God, that transfer makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if that comes back around. That said, Maddison finished the season in great form. Leicester obviously don't want to sell. He assisted Keenan Dewsbury-Hall's goal last night. And on Keenan Dewsbury-Hall, I'd be far more likely to pick him at 5 than Almiron, by the way. So 3 goals now in pre-season, Dewsbury-Hall.
He's my 5 million
I think
I want to go
with Newcastle, it's going to be a skip for me. It's really not clear where Guimaraes is going to play. And Si messaged me. And he said, to be honest, he thought that Guimaraes would probably play the deeper role. But he also said, look, it's Forest opening day. You could easily play Longstaff and keep Guimaraes at 8. But he also said, but he also may look at it and look at Willock's late running into the box, and therefore Guimaraes plays deeper. So Guimaraes just becomes an awkward one in the sense of, you do know where he's going to play. He's going to play central midfield. But whether he plays as a 6 or an 8 can obviously potentially have impact on his FPL returns. And the honest answer is we don't know. The other thing we don't know is who's going to play at centre-back. Now, that's not overly relevant for FPL, but we've got 4 players competing. We assumed very much it would be Botman plus 1, i.e. Burn or Share. Si thinks that it might be that Botman doesn't start. Let's just be a little cautious if people have him. He thinks he probably does, but he said to me he wouldn't be surprised if it was Burn and Share opening day. Trippier, I think, is obviously a great shout. 2 assists last week against Benfica. Will get attacking returns. It's probably not going to be for me, but I wouldn't put anybody off getting Kieran Trippier.
Above, no Newcastle for me.
The other learning was he recommended against Pope's side, didn't he?
Yeah. So above Newcastle got to be Leicester. West Ham.
2 of you joined. Yeah, so do you want to talk about Leicester first?
Yeah, let's talk about Leicester first. So, I don't own any.
Well,
but I think they're attacking fullbacks in Castagne Pereira priced well. Eyes on them. I think Keaton Dewsbury-Hall, 5 million.
Suj is out the loop, isn't he?
What's happened?
So Leicester played a friendly last night,
right,
against Seville.
I know Fofana. There's a potential move for him on the cards, and Maddison bids on the table. That's all I saw.
This is it, and we speculated about it when Aaron came on last week about there was a growing feeling within football that Leicester might be open to selling 1 or 2 of their stars because they're really struggling to kind of get the numbers of the squad down when they've got no European football this season. Tielemans obviously is out of contract next year. Was left out of the team originally last night. I think what happened last night probably means that he will still start the season, not an FPL consideration. But obviously he could go, right? I think anybody looking to buy Tielemans is probably waiting until later in the window to try and get him as cheap as possible. Maddison and Fofana are the 2 big obvious sellable assets. It's worth saying Kasper Schmeichel, we're told, is allowed to leave if Leicester find a replacement goalkeeper. That's not going to be Bernd Leno because we think he's going to Fulham. Last night, Castagna played right wing.
Right wing.
Not wing back, right wing. But Ricardo Pereira got injured again, and it's potentially a bad one. So we presume that
he
means...
only gets bad injuries, doesn't he, Ricardo Pereira? Well, it feels like whenever he gets injured, it's something serious.
It's interesting with Castagna because Aaron thought originally that if it was going to be a back four, he thought it would be Justin left back and Pereira right back that started the season. So we've gone from yesterday morning not thinking he's going to start the season, so the team comes out, he starts right wing. And you and instantly you go, oh my God, great. Now Pereira's injured. You do think Castagna's going to play, but it's back to right back. How many attacking returns for Castagna last season?
Maybe 1 or 2.
1. Yeah. 2,000 minutes is a sizable number. 75 FPL points, I think he got. 2,000 minutes. Now, obviously, defensively, they were atrocious last year, and Evans is fit, Fofana's fit, Justin's fit. That should be a lot stronger this year, but it's not guaranteed that it will be. I think, though, if I was going to start a 4.5 now, arguably Castagna would be the one.
Definitely worth looking at, keeping eyes on. For me, I think it's a great price, 4.5 for him.
It's obviously more security now, but it's not a guarantee. Obviously, they could move Justin to right back and Thomas could play at left back, for example, or they switch the system up. But yeah, I think Castagna at 4.5 would be... We had the three of them with Pereira and Justin come out and, which one? Well, I think now, if you was to go with one, I think Castagna would be the way I'd go anyway. I'd go for it. Much more effective right back than left back as well, which helps, which presumably that's, I guess, what it will be. But he has the capability to play left as well. There's nothing to say that he couldn't swap with Justin, for example. Dewsbury Hall is going to be close for me, I think, actually. It kind of comes down to if I'm going to go with a 5, which is
in your midfield. You got Bailey maybe at 5, Dewsbury Hall maybe at 5, Pereira at 4.5. Have you got the cheapest?
Pereira's injured. Oh, you mean Andreas?
Yeah,
4.5.
Yeah. Is he in for you, Pereira?
Of course he is, yeah.
So you can't just have all these cheapies.
The only way Andreas Pereira wouldn't be going in for me is if I knew I was going to start with a midfield 5, which I don't think I am.
Is Bailey versus Dewsbury Hall an either or then?
Oh, yeah, it's not both. No way.
It's one of the two of them. That makes sense. And I would go Dewsbury Hall over Bailey just because of reliability. But
well, what I'm thinking at the moment is as well that if I go Bailey at the start and it proves to be wrong, then there's the obvious. He's the comfort blanket is Dewsbury Hall.
Yeah.
It's just to go, okay, right, yeah, he probably is going to play as a 10 quite often, it looks like, for Leicester. And interesting, as I said, 3 goals in pre-season. Was it 4 attacking returns he got for Leicester? I think kind of in the back end of last season. He's not going to get big
3,
numbers.
A goal and 2 assists.
He's a 5 million midfielder, but I'll tell you what, he's a lock as well. He will disappoint FPL managers, I think, in the sense that his positioning won't equate to what you... I imagine his X numbers will look quite poor considering where he'll play on the pitch. But it doesn't make him a bad pick at 5 million for a team we expect to potentially compete for European qualification and don't have the European competition as distraction this year. But I feel like with them, if I go Dewsbury Hall first and Bailey explodes at the start, I'll be kicking myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Whereas if it looks like he's bad and then Dewsbury Hall, you look at it and go, yeah, okay,
consistent.
He's going to stay there at 10. He is consistent. And then I can move that. I think
Dewsbury Hall's got very little ownership, less than 1%, and I don't see that changing at all. So I don't think it's going to be a problem to go back to him.
He's a decent pick, but I think as it stands right now, I would rather take the punt with Bailey. If you're looking for security, because everybody always says it, don't they? But will he start? Listen, if that's how you are as a manager and you feel like you need your definite start, go with Dewsbury Hall. They've got 2 very good opening home fixtures.
Vardy?
No. Yeah. It's just not going to work for me.
He's not a bad pick, though.
He's a great pick, and it might even be that we come to game week 3 and he might even look like the best captaincy option with Southampton at home that day. But he's not going to work with me to start. Maddison's going to be a no for me. Partly because of these transfer rumours and stuff I don't like. It's just a little bit off-putting for me. Those who want to go there, crack on. He's in form still as well, it's worth saying. And again, good fixtures to start with for Leicester in the first 3 particularly. But I won't be going with James Maddison.
West Ham then. I'm not going with any to start with.
Oh, that's sad, isn't it?
No.
Who's going to start in goal? Fabi
started at the weekend.
So that's that, is it?
I think so. I know the clamour for people to want Areola to start seems to be growing, but Fabi started at the weekend, so I'd say Fabianski.
I think Areola at some point this season will be a real option for people.
Yeah, I agree with you.
We think it'll be a back three for you on Sunday, is that right?
Yeah, based on what we saw at the weekend again.
But we don't know if that's going to be the system beyond, right? It feels like a bit of preparation is going on for Manchester City.
Yeah.
I think Chris is of the opinion it'll probably be Johnson at left wing back. He said to me he thinks.
Well, anyone but Masuaku. So Masuaku played left wing back in the friendly, but that's because Johnson was playing as part of the back three because Ogbonna wasn't in that. So Dawson, Zuma, Ogbonna, you'd think will be the three, with Johnson left wing back, Sufa right.
I'm seeing it as Zuma, Dawson probably, and Cresswell back three.
I think Ogbonna's ready
with Johnson left wing back and Sufal right wing back.
You don't think Ogbonna will be ready?
I've no idea.
Yeah, he didn't play at the weekend, so...
Then it'll probably be Dawson, wouldn't it?
Well, you don't know. But yeah, I mean, back three, but either way, it doesn't make any of these interesting options for the start.
No, Zuma is worth watching for longer term at 4.5 if you can bear to put him in your team and stuff. Further than that, no. Bowen, if anyone wants to go with him, like, honestly, crack on. But he also hasn't scored in pre-season, if you're bothered by this sort of thing. So it's not like you've seen any form to make you think, oh, he's exploded in pre-season. So we know he can score against City at the weekend. We'll probably talk on City and potential defensive issues in a little bit. If you want to go with Jared Bowen, go with it. Like, I really like it from the perspective as well that if it's wrong, you've then got your pick of whatever 8 million you want from there, if you can get up to it, rather than getting the 8 wrong and panicking and going, oh my God, he's going up in price, I've got to do something about it. If you can get Bowen in and do it that way, you've got more time to assess and take your pick of whatever you want from there. So I don't mind if anyone can get Bowen in, I quite like it. I'm not going to start with a West Ham player.
No. And a few asking around Skamaka, well, he didn't start or play at the weekend. He'll be eased in, so you can just take your time with looking at a 7 million forward. If he goes off, you'll have plenty of time to get him in. He'll be eased in. You'll probably get to see more of him. It will probably start the Europa Conference League games to build up fitness at the start as well. So you'll get a good look before you need to really dive into that. Antonio will be striker at the start of the season. So above him is going to be Manchester United. Did you know, James?
Yeah.
That Cristiano Ronaldo is happy to be back, as he put on his Instagram post.
Was that like? Did he put that on his Instagram while he was walking out the stadium before the match finished?
Is that what happened?
Nico?
Wow. All I saw on the BBC was a picture of him. He'd posted it in the kit he played. Happy to be back, like whatever emoji.
Good for him.
That's just unbelievable, isn't it?
So, as we kind of thought, and we had a long chat about Ronaldo on Correspondent Week with Gary, and I don't think opinions changed from that. And I think this is the reality that we spoke about with Gary, and I'm hearing from other people is Ronaldo staying at Manchester United makes their assets less desirable. Reality. Mracus Rashford is 50-50 for me at the moment. Be the one under consideration. I think Dalot is a very decent 4.5 million pick as well. So if people do want to go for one, I don't mind that. Fixtures are okay. 3 of the first 4 have certainly got clean sheet potential. Does look like he'll start at right back. He would be the one defensively to look at. I know people are looking at Sancho. I think Ronaldo being around means Martial is a no-go till we've got more info. I do think Martial will start. I can't see Ronaldo starting against Brighton, personally, but he's going to be there. And his shadow's enough to be off-putting, I think, for Martial.
Yeah.
Rashford at 6.5 could be a decent punt I'd go with. What I like about Rashford as well is, obviously, got Liverpool in 3, and we keep speaking about Arsenal was, well, you don't definitely want it for the first 2. Palace, Leicester could be tricky. Rashford first 2, and if I don't like it, Martinelli's there. I'm kind of forecasting and picturing the problem there, which I think is worth doing. If you're going for someone like, let's say you're going for Neto, it's possibly a better example. With Neto, are you then happy if you're really unhappy with it or he gets injured or whatever? is there another 5.5 you're happy to go with, or are you happy to come round to Bailey if he's doing well, or Dewsbury Hall, or are you coming down to 4.5 and putting an extra million in defence or something? With Rashford, I really like that I can punt it for the first two, Brighton and Brentford, and if it's shit, the timing to Martinelli is just blatantly obvious in front of my face and potentially puts a few pips in the bank and stuff as well. So I think Rashford's probably going to be a yes for me.
Ronaldo was spotted leaving early after being replaced with Dalot. Him and Dalot left. That's why Dalot came on for him.
Oh, so Dalot left with him, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, well, he's a wanker as well then.
They were sitting in the...
Is it a Portuguese thing, Nico?
Director's box. There was a number of United players all left their seats 10 minutes before the end of the game. Ten Hag's going to be fuming, isn't he? Fuming.
I don't know, is he? Isn't he? Maybe he's told them to do that. I don't know. Listen, because it's Ronaldo, get hyped up. For all we know, they've been told to leave early, in fairness. Any United players consideration for usage?
No.
Just literally no.
No. And that's not to say I won't go back for them. I need to see it, mate. But they're on the list of I need to see it before I go there.
The other thing with Rashford is he feels like the sort of player that if he does well, his price will go up really quickly. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if he scores twice on Sunday, he'll all over him.
Yeah, he'll be a replacement for maybe one of the 8 millions that I've got in there. Like he'll perform like one of those 8 millions at 6.5, even 6, 7. So that's the sacrifice. I know where I'd be happy to go like Kulusevski to Rashford and put the money elsewhere if I couldn't afford it in any other way. So
the structure I'm looking for, I'm kind of either or. I'll tell you, probably choice where I'm at the moment is arguably Mracus Rashford versus Reece James. Is arguably where I'm at. And if I picture that, I probably want to go Reece James. But I like the balance of what I have for problem solving if I go with Rashford, like knowing, Martinelli's there in game week 3. Whereas if I go with James, then chances I'm going 5-3-2, and I've got this massive gap between Bailey and 8 million. Feels too big. I sit Rashford in there in the middle of it. If I then need to get to Reece James, it's not like I can't get there. But it could be if I go that way, the problem between 5 and 8 million, there's so many potential choices in there, and I can't get near it. So it might be that although I would rather have James than Rashford, that I pick Rashford.
Agreed.
Might be where I'm at.
I think 5th they've gone with Arsenal.
Yeah.
I think that's right. I think Chelsea. I think Arsenal will probably end up top 4 on current form. But let's talk about Arsenal because they've been picked as
I think where Arsenal will finish this year will probably be dependent on Chelsea.
Yeah, I've got Jesus in as has.
Because I think
in the game.
I don't have a doubt in my mind that Arsenal will improve on last season. But if Chelsea and Tottenham also improve, they may find it. We spoke about this with Adam. Last year, it felt like if they got into top 4, it would be because everyone else was shit. This year, it feels like they might miss out on top 4 because it's far more difficult. And I think that's dependent on Chelsea and obviously Tottenham as well.
Yeah. The debates around me for Arsenal, Jesus was in and has been since he was 8 million. I had, like I said, Lingard in at 6 million value, and I'd seen Martinelli crop up more and more in conversations and people talking about him. I hadn't really considered him. I asked a couple of Arsenal people that I know that go to games and have been watching all the pre-season friendlies, where's this hype coming from? And it came down to their style of play at the moment with Saka, Jesus, Martinelli, and another Odegaard is to press and harry from the front. Like that's a very busy front line. You know they're going to be in your face, and they've got high energy, and that's what they're going to play. And Martinelli is as good as any at that. Like Pepe ain't going to be a presser.
Martinelli's a super choice at 6 million. Super choice.
And allied with my strategy of let's stick to the top 4 or 5 teams if I can. He's in for me, and Jesus is in, and that's it. I'm going to leave if there's room for a third Arsenal, there's room for a third Arsenal. I'm going to leave that to be, but that's where I'm with it at the moment.
Yeah, I don't want to start with 3, but I've become conscious that maybe I don't want to start with 1. Jesus is, as long as he's fit, come Friday, he's in for me, and I've never had a moment's question of it from the moment I saw the price. And do you know what? That might be a blockage I've got on me, partly because of what I said on the pod. I'd almost answered the question as soon as I saw the price, didn't I?
The form you've seen in pre-season is justifying it, mate.
What is that as well? And that's why I said I think he could even be up to sort of 75%. Someone let me know, what's the highest owned player ever in Game Week 1? I don't historically have the memory to know, but I've never seen anyone this high. Not since we've been doing the podcast anyway.
For sure.
Can't be.
For sure.
But I'm sure there is someone from 2012 or whatever who was crazy owned 80% or something at the start. Who was it? I'd be interested to know. Jesus would be in for me. It's just not in question. It's one as well, like I gave the Watkins comparison, right? Yeah, I can go for 2, but what if I don't want a wild card in 3 and then getting there is an absolute nightmare? Because he's potentially a captain option as well, Game Week 3 at Bournemouth. Possibly even 4 would be more difficult because City and Liverpool are great fixtures that week, and Tottenham. But even 3's an open field, right? With his ownership, he's probably over 100 EO in Game Week 3 if he does well in the first couple of weeks, I can imagine. Saka's a great choice as well. Got a couple of goals himself on Saturday. I mean, battered Seville 6-0, right?
No joke.
Was it 4-0 after 15 minutes or something?
25 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely murdered. I've not seen it.
That was straight out the gate, press them and force them into mistakes, and that's going to be Arsenal style.
They also beat Chelsea 4-0 as well. So they're right on it at the moment.
Yeah.
Saka's a great choice. Martinelli's a great choice. Jesus is a great choice. I wouldn't want to go all 3, but again, my structure is considering I want to be able to go there. So say I am really happy with Rashford. If my 8 million choice, which is probably going to be Diaz, is not working out and I want to jump to Saka in 3, I want the availability to take my pick there with what I want. Ramsdale is now under serious consideration for me.
I've seen him in so many drafts now.
And it's because of that. When I look at the other teams at the moment, regular listeners will know I think Tierney's a super talent, but he's not going to be ready for Game Week 1, so can't consider him at the moment. He might be, but I think it'd be surprising if he starts. But he's the offensive one, if you will. Gabriel, I know a few people have identified, could be a big threat from set pieces. Don't particularly disagree with it, but really, I want to go with the wing backs personally. And it's bringing Ramsdale to the table, knowing that the last year's top 4 all have interest in, let's say, wing back options. Whereas right now, at this minute, Arsenal don't. And that's what's bringing Ramsdale more and more to my thoughts, going, yeah, do you know what? If I've got it sitting there kind of from the Game Week 3 onward period, looking at if I don't wildcard to sort of the international break or something, then Ramsdale over that period might be a better call than Mendy, purely, not because I necessarily think Ramsdale's a better choice than Mendy, but again, I'm more likely to suddenly want to go to James or Alonso or Chilwell. I don't feel that way with Arsenal. Agreed. So that's why, although I don't necessarily think Ramsdale's a better choice than Mendy, I'm now beginning to lean that way. And anybody who's been through all 20 pods in Correspondent week will know I've had nearly every goalkeeper over the last week. The one that's sitting in there right now is Ramsdale.
Spurs, the burning question is fullback. So I saw from the weekend that...
Just one more thing. That Adam Pritchard, 3-5, who say to me that he thought, obviously Ben White's probably going to play right back at Palace Game Week 1, that he thought Saliba had a better chance of getting in the team than he originally thought.
Okay.
So, yes, Ben White and Gabriel were first choice, definitely, but he really thinks Saliba's going to put the pressure on. And, you know, do you want to buy a guaranteed 6-point Ben White when Saliba's going to be breathing down his neck? Probably not for me. Sorry, Tottenham. So I don't know. We'll just skip Tottenham.
Doherty and Emerson shared half a half, but Perisic smashed that 75 minutes, I saw, James.
Chelsea fourth.
Oh, it is, yeah?
By a distance.
We'll come back to him. We'll come back to these wing backs. I've got no Chelsea.
As I've said, it's probably going to be James versus Rashford for me, but I feel like I've even explained it where Rashford, for me, feels like the better choice. It doesn't mean it necessarily is for everybody else. We know there's links with players over the weekend. One of them includes Denzel Dumfries, who 100% is a wing back. And if Chelsea make that deal happen, then I think we really can see Reece James playing right-sided centre-back. And then 6 million feels too much. If he's wing back, 6 million is too cheap. If he's centre-back, it's too much. And it's just enough doubt there at the moment where I prefer others. I don't think he's worth the saving versus the likes of Cancelo, for example, at the moment. So James and Mendy are both still real considerations for me. I don't think it'd be anyone else. Sterling doesn't work structure-wise for me.
It's very hard to get Sterling in structure-wise unless you really sacrifice De Bruyne, Son, Salah
Mason
spot.
Mount is obviously a decent choice at 8 million. Interestingly, Gary said at the weekend they play Udinese, it was Havertz right, Mount left, Sterling central. But I think it's quite clear that all three of those players could play all three of those roles, yeah. And I think we might see more tactical flexibility from Chelsea this year, where we might see back four sometimes and stuff like that. But yeah, it's probably James, Mendy, or no one. And at the moment, sitting in that team, and I'm not saying it's how it'll be, it's no one.
Yeah, no one at the moment. I want Sterling. He's the most that I'd like, or Chilwell or James, but I'm going to wait and see on Chelsea. The thing for me is Chelsea are the most likely from that top five to fall out and have a disastrous. I think the others, yourselves, Arsenal, Liverpool, City, are more reliable. So I'm going to wait and see with Chelsea before I go in on any assets and who I go in on as well.
Gary's more positive than he was when he spoke to us last week.
They've still got a good squad.
Because of course they do, and they still have a good team. They played better against Udinese at the weekend. There were two games, basically had a game between the first teams and the second teams. Ben Chilwell played as part of that group that was part of the second teams in what was a kind of behind closed doors match. If you know that you're going to wildcard in game week 3, I don't mind anyone picking Marcus Alonso.
Okay.
I mean, he's a real short-term pick. Is he 5.5, Suj, I want to say?
Yeah, he is.
He's got a brilliant record against Tottenham as well, which is the game week 2 fixture. Set pieces and the like. He's definite threat. What price is he?
Yeah, 5.5.
Ownership?
Oh, you're asking me. Let's have a click on his little icon. 4.3, reasonably high.
Really?
Higher than you
Surprised
thought.
about that. Honestly, I think for 2 weeks, a real punt. Anything longer, we don't really know where we're at with Chilwell. Chilwell we can't pick now, unfortunately. And I really would have liked to have fought against Reece James with Chilwell. I feel like if I pick Mendy or James, there's a little bit of fear in it at the moment, knowing that James is really highly owned. Mendy's probably going to go off as the most owned goalkeeper. So the safety play would be to start with something from it. But there's every chance I'm not going to, I think.
Go on then. Spurs wing-backs. Perisic getting 75 minutes surely means he's getting the fitness in his legs to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
he's ready to go, mate.
Yeah. So Perisic is in for me. I mean, I never took him out in the sense that I'd only have taken him out if I really knew that he wasn't going to play. On the other side, though, Doherty is obviously cheaper, and they shared the game, Emerson and Doherty. So if someone's looking to save money or can't afford Perisic, but still wants one of the fullbacks, Doherty or Emerson, or just don't bother.
I've been saying for weeks that we'd get to this point and we'd have clarity, and now we have it. I would be 95% sure that even Perisic will start against Southampton. And I'll be 95% sure that it'll be in my FPL team at the start of game week 1 as well. I took him out a couple of weeks ago because it looked like it was dragging on. I saw 20 minutes at Rangers and put him back in last week was enough. And what I saw on Saturday in what was a difficult game played on basically concrete was even more so. He was Tottenham's most likely scorer throughout the match. Had a couple of great efforts with his left foot, one very narrowly wide from sort of 25 yards or so. He's always looking to get inside the box and stuff. When the ball's on the other side, he will get headers at the back post, that kind of thing. Not that we necessarily have a great crosser from the right, but if it's Kulusevski coming back onto his left, that's decent. So Perisic will get returns. There's not a doubt on him, really, for me, to be totally honest. He's going in. The other side looks strongly like it's going to be Doherty. And Conte's comments after the game, which we always have to be careful with managers' comments and stuff. But his comments about asking for patience with Perisic and Doherty particularly. And also, I think a reminder seeing Perisic and Doherty together for the first time. Remember, Doherty didn't play at Rangers. Made me understand why that's probably going to be the first choice. And it comes down to quite purely in behind running. Doherty's the best at it of all the wing backs that Tottenham have in terms of balls on the other side. Will he actually run behind the last man on the back post and time it right? Yes, he can. So Doherty at 5 million is super interesting, and he's not out of the running for me.
As to add in addition to Perisic.
Yeah.
So
it wouldn't be Doherty over Perisic for me. I would pay the extra 0.5. I haven't ruled out going with both. I think that's very unlikely, but I haven't ruled it out. What I would say is with Doherty, and I've spoken about this a lot, I think, like, for example, Emerson might play at Chelsea, where you're going to be doing more defending and stuff. Emerson is a much better defender. If you can actually find the game from the weekend against Roma, don't watch all of it, by the way, because you'd be pulling your eyes out because it wasn't great. And don't read too much into that, by the way, either. But the first thing Doherty does is there's a crossfield ball when he goes to cut it out, misses it. And honestly, you want to kill yourself, mate. Oh my God, they're running at us. It's 20 seconds into the game. But that don't matter for fantasy.
No. The attackers then, like, you're talking about going too defensive now.
I don't think I will, but
it could.
We're going to do a whole podcast tomorrow. 5 million defenders. So we're going to talk about Doherty a lot more.
Kulu's in for me as my second 8. I've got 2 8 million midfielders. Diaz we'll talk about in a second. But Kulu's in for me. I've got no Kane. I've got no Son. But I've got Haaland and De Bruyne because I think City are a better team than Spurs, not because they're better fantasy assets. And those are the two that I'm watch the game behind the sofa. And you can't have them all. I ain't got Salah either. You're going to miss some. I've taken the view that Perisic and Kulu at their prices are as good as it gets. So they're the Spurs boys I'm going to go with. But I could quite easily start the season, go with Son over De Bruyne, captain him against Southampton, and then move to De Bruyne for game week 2. Like, that will be the one thing with my squad and structure at the moment, is that it's set for the long term, not for the short term, and you should probably go with a 1 week punt or 2 week punt on something, and that may well be Son for game week 1 instead of De Bruyne, and then move on to De Bruyne. But Kane and Son, people know what they're gonna get hurt by if they don't pick them. But Kulu's still decent at 8, right?
Of course he is. I don't think he's the best at that price.
But he's good.
Yeah. I feel like he's one where people who obviously are going with no Harry or Sonny want the coverage, and he is definitely going to start against Southampton because Richarlison's suspended. That's a certainty. I'm not. Ricky is obviously quite high on having him. So are you. I'm not so much. I still think the majority of what Tottenham do is going to come from more the left-hand side of the pitch. And also, obviously, Kulusevski coming inside allows that Doherty run over the top and in behind as well. So Kulusevski will be a no for me. Is he a bad pick? No. But I'm not convinced he's the best 8 million. What I'd say about him as well is I feel of the 8 million mids, he's arguably the one that's got the kind of consistent tick over. But if you said which one of the 8 million midfielders will physically score the most goals this season, it won't be him. I'm certain of that. He's not going to get 15 goals. Saka might, Mount might, Maddison might. Does that make sense?
Diaz will.
Now, again, we're talking short term here, and Tottenham have good opening fixtures on a whole across the first 6. So, yeah, you can consider him. Yes, he's first choice, but he does have the Richarlison shadow lurking and stuff. I think he's a fine pick for the start. I just don't think he has the kind of explosive nature that the others do in terms of his physical goal scoring. That's a little off-putting for me. He also hasn't, as yet, bizarrely, hasn't scored a goal at home yet.
That will change game week 1.
Hope so. That's why I said it.
Second in the table, Liverpool.
Kane's son.
Neither, but
both great choices, by the way. Just to cover, because we didn't on the Tottenham pod, the idea of going for both is fine. I think on the census that you're gonna buy De Bruyne or Haaland in game week 2, and then you've got your pick. I think that's absolutely fine. What I wouldn't do is pick Kane and Son and move both to De Bruyne and Haaland for a -4.
Yeah.
You're going to get to 3 and you're going to want one of them Tottenham boys back as well. So if you go both and you know you're going to move one, you've got to be prepared for, you've got to think in your mind, what do I do if I have problems elsewhere? Are you going to be stuck? Are you going to be stuck with Son and Kane away to Chelsea and, taking hits for the City boys? You have to be conscious of that, I think. I don't mind it. What I don't like is the get both and then get the 2 City boys, because the 2 City boys could outscore the Tottenham boys at the weekend anyway. I don't think they will, in all honesty, but I wouldn't put that in as a -4 to move both, because then in 3 for me, you're going to want one of the Tottenham boys back again.
Trent scored at the weekend. He's a lock, isn't he?
Trent will be in. I'm fairly sure I'll start with Andy Robertson as well. It is going to be no Salah. It's not no Salah because I don't want Mo Salah. It's the team structure works better for me without him.
Agreed.
And obviously, I love the other potential 3 Liverpool assets, and that's and I think
you're Diaz, TA, and Robbo.
Yeah,
and I'm Diaz, TA, and Alisson.
I've been those 3, Trent, Robbo, and Diaz for a long time. That's the way it will stay for me. I can't see that changing personally. I believe I can fight against Mo Salah with the combination of Manchester City and Tottenham captaincies and possibly Arsenal as the weeks go on, or possibly even Raheem Sterling at Chelsea for game week 3 is not out of my thoughts, or even Jamie Vardy in game week 3 if something happens to Haaland, for example. Yes, it will be those 3 for me. Alisson, we think is going to be fit for game week 1, but I do think you are taking a risk there, mate, if you go that way. And I think you should think about it.
I'll wait and see what happens on the presser.
Dan said to us last week that he thought Firmino would start the season, which I guess is a controversial opinion. It surprised me when he said it.
He started the weekend.
Firmino started at the weekend, and Firmino might start this coming weekend as well. Now, it doesn't mean Darwin Núñez can't come off the bench and score again. You're absolutely right. But Dan was at pains to stress last week that he thought that Núñez probably would be eased in. And obviously off the back of the end of the Community Shield, I've seen him in a few teams, and I'm not convinced, to be totally honest. He's not under consideration for me, Núñez.
Man City.
Liverpool, when the prices came out, it felt like there'd be 8-9 options, and the closer we've got, it hasn't. No. Konate got injured yesterday as well, by the way, so Matip, we would think will start now, game week 1, where it was unsure, let's say.
City, I've got Cancelo, De Bruyne and Haaland. Cancelo and Haaland have been in from day 1, and De Bruyne has worked his way in. I love his variety of the way that he can score his points. Kevin De Bruyne, I think he's going to have a great season. In a strange way, I'm kind of glad they didn't win at the weekend, and people are doubting now the Haaland to Núñez jump or Salah definitely over KDB, because Man City are Man City. I'm likely to stick with these 3. Probably with the De Bruyne pick, that's the stubborn one. Cancelo everyone's going with. Haaland is very understandable if you don't go with Kane. De Bruyne instead of Son or Salah raises a few more eyebrows, but the guy's a beast, so I think I might stick with it and swim against a little bit.
I'm fairly certain it's going to be Cancelo and Haaland for me. I can't see either of them 2 leaving, but I think that will be it. We spoke about it last week with Johnny, the idea of not booking yourself into the 3rd and actually having an open mind to it, where, I can go Son to De Bruyne potentially in game week 2, for example, or go with another defensive player. Johnny's gone colder on Jack Grealish since the weekend, wasn't happy with the way he played, and I don't think he'll start with him now. I don't think I'll start with him. I'd come to that conclusion, I think, prior to the Community Shield anyway. Alvarez is now the one to watch, I think, 6.5. I wouldn't start with him. But I'd be very, very, as a forward, by the way, I'd be very, very conscious that he could get into the team. One of the things Johnny said, and I think this goes back to something Luke Disabled said previously as well about the potential problem of Mahrez with Haaland. So what Johnny was saying was that the problem with Mahrez and Grealish with Haaland is it becomes a bit static, whereas, Foden will go and drift into like pockets and stuff like that. So he was saying the need to get more energy in the team, be it a Foden or an Alvarez, will be a priority. Johnny said that he thought that the front three that played against Liverpool probably would start against West Ham, so probably Mahrez, for example, but that he'd be very concerned about that as a front three going forward because it didn't have enough energy. And I think it's a concern, actually. I think that's easily fixed by actually having Phil Foden in the team. And obviously it's City, right? So, do they need to worry about this sort of thing when they play Bournemouth at home? No, they probably don't, right? But in some of the bigger games, it's potentially a little bit of an issue, as is defensively. So this needs to be said. Every time Mo Salah plays Cancelo, he absolutely destroys him. He's actually a really bad one-on-one defender, Cancelo. He's an amazing player. He's one of the best fullbacks on the planet, but we only ever judge him for what he is on the ball. I think defensively, he's atrocious at times.
Yeah, he doesn't need to defend that much at City, so he gets away with it.
Liverpool always just smash it over the top of him and get Salah one-on-one with him. And I part mention this because when the two teams play each other, I don't think you should be frightened to captain Mo Salah against Man City. It's part of my point. He says, thinking of going without Mo Salah at the start of the season. I guess at the moment, Aki's going to start with Diaz, Walker at right back. Haven't got the cover at the moment. Stones obviously is fit. I think they'd be better off getting him back in the team. Laporte's not fit at the moment. We spoke about Cucurella. They are light in the full-back areas, but Stones can cover at right back. Aki can cover at left back. So even if they have those six and they've got a few kids coming through, it's not a disaster. They're not a huge, if they got to a real problem, could they play Rodri at centre-back and play Phillips in midfield? Yeah, they probably could.
Just doesn't make you want to double up or triple up at the back.
Well,
really.
You'd mentioned to me about the amount of goals they'd been conceding in games.
Yeah, it feels like they're always leaking twos and threes.
We had a look back, and it's going back to the FA Cup semi-final with Liverpool. There's 3 clean sheets in the last 10 in all comps, which includes conceding 3 to Liverpool twice and 2 to Liverpool in the league. Includes 6 goals conceded to Real Madrid. They conceded 2 to Villa last day, 2 to you in Gameweek 37. That suggests that the fast start we're expecting might be problematic, and at the moment I wouldn't want double City defence. So Cancelo is enough for me.
Yeah, agreed completely.
And if it suddenly looks like, oh my God, Kyle Walker is going to play every week, or John Stones gets back in the team or whatever, then I can go and make the choice. But I think it'll just be Cancelo, Haaland for me. Haaland, game week 2, go and listen to the Bournemouth pod with Neil Grover.
He didn't have his best game on the weekend, but give him time.
But you know what? Right, this is the overreaction of people, right? So, again, what side of the fence do you want to sit on? Are we suddenly going to say, oh my God, Haaland's a donkey in front of goal? I mean, like, seriously. He obviously, the one particular chance at the end, he obviously 9 times out of 10 scores that regularly. He didn't, right? People were saying the same thing about Nunez a couple of weeks ago. What did he do in his next game? He scored 4, right? Seriously, Nunez missed a very similar chance against Man United, scored 4 in his next friendly. I don't think Haaland will score 4 against you, but I wouldn't rule out the possibility. Clearly, he's not 100% fit, but I'd look at it more and say, so hang on, he was playing against Liverpool, Van Dijk, etc. at the weekend, and he did have chances. He was in position. He did have opportunities. His XG was high. So what's it going to be against any other teams? Haaland is in for me, and I'd be very surprised if I'm not captaining him in game week 2.
That's a wrap. James, we thought, let's rattle through the teams in 40 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes later.
As per usual. But I think that's a nice overview.
We haven't talked about each one for particularly long. It just feels like we've been through them all and people have got the updates on them. We have had some questions in on Twitter when you put the tweet out yesterday. And we can cover some of them off as well if you'd like to.
Yeah.
Do you want to give them what we do, the rundown of the rest of the week? We have, obviously, People's Poll tomorrow.
So, as we alluded to, People's Poll vote is out, done. I put it out overnight, so we didn't end up having a large debate about Trippier versus Doherty versus Dean and stuff, because this set of things going to happen tomorrow. The winner of the People's Poll vote was for us to have a more detailed look at 5 million defenders tomorrow. I must say, I did think it was going to be 4.5 defenders, but 5 5.0 defenders has won. That's what we'll be looking at for you tomorrow. Wednesday will be our Season 4 premiere of Sky Fantasy Football. It will be an extended pod. I've told Suj she needs an hour and a half. I'll be streaming on Thursday with Ask James. There's an opportunity to ask me questions prior to all the team news going out. Probably be lunchtime. We'll reveal our drafts, our final drafts on Friday, which of course will come with a caveat of subject to team news. But we'll get that out for you early on Friday. I'll be doing the deadline stream on Friday as well. And it's August the 1st, Suj.
Patreon!
Yeah, mate.
It's a perfect time to sign up to our community, which crossed over 600 people last week. If you do want to support the show, then you can head over to patreon.com/planetfpl, where you can find out more about our different levels of Patreon tiers that we offer. A basic tier, it's only £3 a month, is it? And you get access to our Slack channel, which has very active fantasy managers, fans of all the different teams that go to all the games, that will give you insight and happily answer questions for you. A Excel-based planner for the season allows you to plan transfers. James does a better job on the old FDR than the official fantasy website as well. Very useful for Sky fantasy managers as well. Intermediate tier, you get an additional podcast every single day on different subjects. Advanced tier,
weekdays.
I
ain't putting shit out on Sunday. Like, seriously.
Videos at advanced tier levels wraps up the team news, wraps up the news that's going on. Talking Tactics goes out for the advanced tiers. Loads of stuff in there. That's worth it.
Next Talking Tactics is probably going to be on Kira Walsh, to be honest.
Prize leagues, mini leagues that we give out cash for, that plenty of people have done quite all right in as well. Just head over to Patreon if you enjoy it.
The total pot for the advanced tier mini leagues is £1,000. For the intermediates, it's £500. Pods this week, Q&A today, and we got some specials this week. The wife's coming on tomorrow to try and pick her team, which will be a car crash, no doubt. Dead team, differential team. We'll have our Game Week 1 preview show on a Friday as well. I feel like looking down the camera and saying, did you enjoy the 23 podcasts you had last week? If so, we'd love to have your support on Patreon. www.patreon.com/planetfpl.
That's the one. Right. There are a lot of questions in here, James, that are very, you decide type stuff. You know, like, what am I doing with my team?
Bailey.
We're getting into the final 3 or 4 days, and certain questions like this, you've got to make your choice now, really, based on what you've heard and the information you've made. We have an opinion, but I don't know if necessarily our opinion is what you should be making your decisions on that. People are getting to the point, but there are a few questions that are completely irrelevant and well worth asking. And, of course, Amber's jumped in with a very good one. If you had to trust... Basically, what I've said is I'm not answering it.
Is this politics?
No, fuck politics. I'm not doing any FPL questions. I'm doing the others. Amber Edmonds says, if you had to trust one correspondent to organise your stag do, who would it be? No questions for me. Not even one. Go on, Ricky Saunders. We might fucking end up in Luton or somewhere. But I'm going with Ricky. And it says a lot that I'm going to trust a Spurs fan to sort out my stag do, but I'm going Ricky Saunders. Now, that's not to say the others wouldn't do a good job.
I'm going to say Sam Murray. Because I don't think he'd throw me under the bus. I think he'd go easy on me.
You want to be thrown under the bus. Nah, I'm voting for Ricky, but that's not to say the others couldn't do it. FPL Tractor, do you think there will be a WSL fantasy this coming season? I don't think it'll be this coming season. I don't know when their season starts, mate, but I just don't think there's enough knowledge on it.
I think we should create a game for the Women's Super League. Legitimately. I think we should do it because I've been trying to do this She Plays one for the Euros, and I mean, it's an awful website to navigate. It's absolutely terrible. And I think they will do one for the Women's Super League, but I can't be getting on with that website. It is brutal to try and navigate and stuff. So I think you should get your programmers on it, and I think we should make the game.
Andy Cairns, who wins the Golden Boot this season?
Oh, good question.
It's very tight. I mean, Haaland, just for volume of goals that those guys score. Jesus, front man at Arsenal, is going to do all right. Kane's always in the running.
I'm going to say no to Haaland because I think he will have injuries. I think there'll be times where you'll have to come off him and stuff. I think he will be managed at points as well. If he stays fit all season and plays all the games, then yeah, Haaland. I am going to say Harry Kane.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad shout. I think it's just going to be tight.
It's obviously not a bad shout. It's not like I said Ollie Watkins.
I mean, Jesus, I think it's going to be in running. Vardy might be there or thereabout. There's going to be plenty in the running. I mean, Salah, of course. How can you overlook him after the years that he's had? I think it's going to be more people involved in the Golden Boot race this year than there has been maybe in previous years.
I wouldn't rule out Jesus, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. I think he could be well up there. FPL discussion. If your kid went on Love Island when they were older, how would you feel? And would you go on the parent episode?
Oh, leave
So, I haven't watched.
Someone
Love
asked me
Island.
on one of my streams the other week, say, who do you think is going to win? Like, do I know anybody in there? Don't be
I don't know
silly.
anyone in there.
No.
Well, how would I feel?
I
if
only
my
know
kid
that
went in
Michael
there?
Owen's daughter was in there. That's it.
Oh, fair play. I wouldn't be overly impressed if that's what they were doing. Yeah.
I'll presume that if my son goes on Love Island, he's got some handsome genetics. I don't think his father would be allowed on somehow. You might get away with it sexy.
I'd go on the parent episode, but I might be. They might edit me out for the fucking truth, so I might spit on there. So we'll see.
They'd love you.
Fuck. I don't even know what's the point of the program.
I don't know. Get laid?
Is there a prize?
I've no idea. Nico, do you watch it?
Love Island. No. Like, I'm sorry. There's certain subjects that
you wouldn't have got employed if you did.
completely lost on us, and Love Island is one of them.
Not a clue.
Um,
Do you win the girl? No, generally, I've no idea how it works. And I don't care to know either.
I'm just looking at these.
Bailey or Almiron questions.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of that, is there?
Yeah.
It's the start of the season. These guys won't ask questions next week.
Nah. The only thing I can recommend on the content, of course, is Correspondent Week. We did talk about it last week. Very easy listening and very good insight from all of them on their team. So thank you to them once again. And if you need some more additional advice about a specific player, then go back to them. We'll be back at you tomorrow with 5 million defenders, going into a bit more detail on Trippier and Cash and Doherty and a few others that are going to be mentioned as well. But we're talking about defences overall as well. So make sure wherever you are listening to the podcast, if you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you're listening on audio but don't follow us on YouTube, go and subscribe over there anyway. I think we're nearly close to crossing over 10,000 subscribers there.
Yeah,
so
thank you for the 40,000 on Twitter now as well.
So, all the little numbers help. We'd love to see you over there as well. Other than that, I'd probably say stay safe, tinker away, and we'll be back at you tomorrow. Ciao. For now.
Yeah, nearly. Thanks, everyone. Play it your way. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man child.